Joining us now is Monifa Bandele, and she is the Senior Vice President of Moms Rising, is a Movement for Black Lives leader who sits on the steering committee for Communities United for Police Reform. And you even launched two successful court cases against police misconduct, which I hope we can get into because we frequently talk about struggles and not enough about victories. So she's had decades of experience working for and towards Black liberation. We're really lucky to have you here. Before we begin, because I know we're going to talk about the Black National Convention, which is happening in a couple of days, the reason for Black August, which is happening now, I want to start up top with the latest on Jacob Blake and also get your response, who is a 29-year-old man, father, who was shot in the back 7 times in front of his children by the Kenosha Police Department. And I believe latest word we received is that he survived, but he is likely paralyzed. I want to get your response to this, especially as somebody who has worked with the Malcolm X Grassroots Project that came out with the report that revealed almost every 28 hours, a Black person is killed through state-sanctioned violence, whether that be police brutality or vigilante violence. So I would love to hear your response, Monifa.
Yeah, chills. I think it's just a sad illustration, a painful, horrific illustration of how real that every 28 hours report was. When we first released that report now 7 years ago, people didn't believe us. People pushed back. They were like, no way, this can't be right. And now through social media and through video footage that can go viral instantly, people are able to see that not only are we inundated daily with police violence against Black men, women, and children, but even during one of the biggest racial justice reckoning of our lifetime, right, of me and you, this past June, there were demonstrations against police murder in all 50 states on the same day of Juneteenth. And even with all that attention, all of the discussion that's going on right now around police killings of Black men, women, and children, that this would happen in broad daylight. The police shot Jacob in front of dozens of people, in front of his children, in front of people, videotaping. And it just goes to show that the culture that is ingrained in policing across the country is so entrenched that it's not just about awareness. Awareness is not going to change this. We need to completely overhaul the system.
Yeah, the work of overhauling the system and changing culture, I really want to pin down on what you were talking about with that, because as we know, most of the political movements that we've been a part of or studying require a cultural shift and change. So I want you to talk to us about Black August, which has become such a cultural point in the year, especially around Black liberation, but it is deeply rooted in political demands.
Yeah, one of the things that is painfully clear to us is that there are many things that our parents fought for in the 60s and 70s that we still have to struggle to tear down. And Black August is a tradition that grew out of the 70s. It grew out of celebrating activists who fought in the California prison system for basic human rights. They were fighting against police violence. They were fighting against police murder, specifically the murder of one of their leaders in the prison system, George Jackson, Katari Golden, Jonathan Jackson by the state. And so throughout the prison system, people say, you know what we need? Not another Black History Month. Black August is not another Black History Month, but we need a time to reflect and study specifically on Black liberation movements. We need to study and uplift freedom fighters specifically, and to take time to study their movements, to recharge ourselves, and to continue to the committed fight. And so now there's been a rebirth of Black August, Now almost 50 years later, George Jackson was killed in 1971. You see people all over the country studying George Jackson, practicing Black August, doing celebrations and doing demonstrations, doing everything they can to continue the fight.
Yeah, can you briefly explain who George Jackson is? There might be some folks watching that don't know about the profound impact he's had on the Black liberation movement.
So we think of mass incarceration as starting in 1994 with the crime bill, but actually mass incarceration is a continuation of the chattel slavery system. And George Jackson was a young man, a teenager actually, who was sentenced for 1 year to life for robbing a gas station of 70 bucks. So if you can imagine that you have a life sentence on the end for a robbery of $70. And he politicized himself. He studied in prison. He understood what many of us have learned out of the book, The New Jim Crow. George Jackson was talking about that from behind the walls. He authored books. People may have seen Blood in My Eyes, Soledad Brothers. And he organized men and women throughout the prison system to demand to be treated like human beings. And that's one of the reasons why he was targeted by prison guards, and he was killed in August of 1971. People also famously know him through his comrade, Angela Davis, who is really the
Yes.
godmother of the modern abolition movement, prison abolition movement today. She was actually on trial allegedly for supplying Jonathan Jackson, his brother, with weapons, who was killed the year before, trying to get his brother out of prison because he saw it as a kidnapping. You know, what teenager gets life in prison for a $70 robbery?
And the injustices, as you had mentioned, continue, although we are demonstrating in larger numbers than I'm sure a lot of us have seen before. What other things are going to be, so as we spoke about in the beginning, the prison industrial complex that's led to the prison abolition movement, that's connected to the calls for defund the police. What other things are happening at the Black National Convention, which is going to be taking place in a couple of days, as we said? And where did the Black National Convention come from?
Yeah, so 6 years ago, out of the Ferguson uprisings, gave birth to the Movement for Black Lives. And 6 years later, 150 Black-led organizations from all over the country are part of the Movement for Black Lives and have been pushing the vision for Black lives since the time of Ferguson. We've been saying that we need to defund the police, that we need to invest in real community safety, invest in community infrastructure, invest in health, and that's the only way that we're going to stop seeing the police violence, the state-sanctioned violence that's killing us every 28 hours still. And so at the Black National Convention, you're going to see a recommitment to that vision for Black lives through our platform, our 2020 Black Agenda. You're going to hear from state delegations from all over the country, just like you'd see at the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention, except that these will be activists who were on the ground on Juneteenth and are saying, no matter what you say, candidates who are running for president, no matter what you say, senator candidates that are running for these seats in swing states, the platform that we're demanding is that the police must be reined in, that we must defund the police. We've got to stop spending more on policing than we do on healthcare and youth services and homelessness services and mental health services combined. And we want that now. We don't want to wait another 10 years, another 20 years. We don't want to have the same fights as our parents and grandparents. So the Black National Convention is going to have cultural performances. We're going to hear from people on the ground. We're going to hear from our allied communities, other folks from around the country. But I don't want to give away too much. People need to tune in. Tune in on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern to the Black National Convention, and you will see what has been happening all over the country.
Yeah, I'm sure after you've gotten your fill from the RNC, this might be a nice solve afterwards. There's something else that this Black National Convention is going to address. It's the Breathe Act. And what I love about this act is it's a giant refutation to the people that cannot understand the difference between activists and organizers. You guys have a political strategy, a vision around defund. It's not just about being on the streets, although that's important. But this piece of legislation is something that brings together cohesively everything you were talking about. I just want you to quickly introduce to our viewers what the Breathe Act is about and how it tangibly meets the goals that you are talking about with defund the police and other agenda items that are important?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. You said that I have been working on police reform for 20 years, and yes, I have. I was in the streets when Amadou Diallo was shot 41 times in the Bronx. You know, we were out for People's Justice 2000 that following year, and we had a whole bunch of legislation. We've always been pushing forth policies. And what we've learned over the past 20 years is that tinkering around the edges of transforming the police does not save us. Chokeholds were banned in New York City long before Eric Garner was strangled to death. We've had a special prosecutor now for half a decade in New York City, and still police officers are not indicted and convicted for killing Black and brown folks, civilians. And so we know that we have a police department that has oversized budgets, outsized political power, and unless we dismantle that, we will be back at it every 28 hours. And the BREATHE Act names that. The BREATHE Act cuts off federal funding to local and state policing and incarceration, and redirects those dollars into what we know are proven methods of community safety. Infrastructure for our folks that need mental health services, homelessness, education, basic health care. You know, we design and we propose to create 6 new major grant areas under the umbrella of community safety. So check out the BREATHE Act. There is a website where you can actually read the bill. It's called breatheact.org, and you can sign up as a community co-sponsor for BREATHE.
That's beautiful. I think this is the part of the conversation from Defund the Police that people sometimes miss, which is the investment in community and community-led safety approaches. So I know what I'm doing on August 28th. I'm going to be watching the Black National Convention. You can too. Please do also follow Monifa Bandele. How can folks follow you?
Absolutely. Follow me on Twitter at Monifa Bandele. Same with Instagram at Monifa Bandele. Same with Facebook. But definitely go to the Movement for Black Lives website. That's m4bl.org, where you will see information about Black August. You'll see information about the BREATHE Act, and you'll see tons of information about the Black National Convention.
Thank you so much, Monifa.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.